All right, Mr. Michael Crean. I said earlier that I don't often read bios when I bring guests on, but I'm compelled to read your bio. I've got a condensed version here. So Michael Crean, a U.S. Army combat veteran, founded Solutions Granted. It is now the Senior Vice President of Managed Services at SonicWall. There's going to be a lot to dig into there, I'm sure, but he's an experienced leader in networking, infrastructure, and cyber resilience, deeply involved in information security and managed security services. Crean is dedicated to MSPs, MSSPs, VARs, building solutions that drive growth and compliance for thousands of customers worldwide. Known for his problem-solving skills and strategies to increase revenue in competitive markets. I don't know. It's a cool bio, man. And yeah, cool background.
I feel like I got to pay somebody more, whoever wrote that.
Yeah, well, they've got one that's about twice as long. I was like, oh my gosh, but it's even more impressive. So, but well done. But thanks for hopping on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I mean, you could have started off with you didn't have to put the Mr. on there. It's always like when somebody says Mr. it's like, wait, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong?
Just trying to, I don't know what I'm trying to do, but it was this morning. I was thinking, man, I got the podcast coming up. And I don't know, I had a flashback to having lunch out in Tyson's Corner. Lunch or early dinner? I can't remember. Early dinner out in Tyson's Corner. Gosh, maybe this time last year, something like that.
Yeah, not too far off from this time. It was. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were waist or probably neck deep in all things due diligence and acquisition and all that fun stuff. So I guess the big news over the last 4 or 5 months now is that you've been acquired. Solutions Granted has been acquired and now part of a pretty kick butt organization called SonicWall.
Yeah, it's been 6 months now.
Is it 6 months? Wow. So yeah. Take us through. We'll do a journey back in time. But again, this is so timely and topical. But you built one heck of an impressive organization. And I think you had probably no shortage of suitors coming after you because of just what you've done and just the quality of revenue and all that stuff. But what was that process like for you? What was kind of the all right, you're ready to be acquired, and you've got all these different groups coming at you. How do you stay organized? How do you stay on top of your day job? I mean, take us through what that period was like for you.
Well, I think first and foremost, it was incredibly chaotic. And, you're trying to, at least for me, I was trying to compartmentalize the best way I could. There's the logical side of this because this is a business transaction, but then there's also the emotional side of this. This is a 22-year journey for me. This wasn't it wasn't a startup where I got a bunch of venture capital or a bunch of private equity money. And then I went out there and built something with the idea that I was going to turn it and sell it. It was never really the journey. And to be honest, early on in the journey, I was talking to a gentleman by the name of Leor Samuelson, and he was he worked for Coopers and Librant Securities way back when, former Israeli Special Forces. He was asking me the questions well, what are you going to do with this business? I don't know. I'm just going to keep picking it up and putting it down is what I'm going to do. He's like, no. What is your exit strategy? What is your, and the only thing I could think of is how cool would it be if one of my kids decided to want to do this? And and I know this, well, probably this is not a PG show. So he called me a dumbass. And that one really hit home on me. It's wait, I'm doing the right things for the right reason, for the right people at the right price, and I'm gaining success. And why would I be this so-called dumbass if I wanted this to be a generational business? And his explanation, he's like, look, what did you start with in your pocket? He says, basically you had lint in your pocket when you started this. Mm-hmm. He's like, if you build it to something that someone finds other value in it and they want to come up with a truckload of cash, he says, you run with it like you stole it. So because then if you decide you want to do it all over again, well, now starting with something is a whole lot easier than starting with nothing. And that really stuck with me. So it was always in the back of my mind, probably about 5-6 years into the journey, that the day would come. I just didn't know when or who or why. And again, trying to separate the logic from the emotion, because think about it. You have a kid, and Kevin, you've got kids, and to see them go off to college while you're really proud and you're happy and you're ready for them to experience that part of life, there's a loss involved there. I can tell you, when my oldest daughter went off to college, I literally cried leaving her at college.
Wow.
I mean, but it wasn't that I was that upset or, that sad. It was just that, seeing her going on to the next phase of her life, but also then realizing like the loss that I was going to experience. And so the business was a lot like that. I mean,
Mm.
there was probably 2 weeks before the acquisition. We were probably maybe somewhere in that time frame. We're at IT Nation down in Florida, and I was out one morning. I was walking around the lake because we couldn't get into the hotel, so we were staying at one of the townhomes across the way. And I'm out there walking around, and literally, like, I'm thinking about the last 22 years and the employees and the change that's about to happen and where it's coming. And I started crying. And I'm like, man, what the heck is wrong with me? I don't know if you ever saw that movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where the police officer starts to get a tear and he says, get back. Yeah, it's kind of what I felt like. It's okay, Buttercup, suck it up. What are you doing? And get that tear back in your eye. But yeah, it definitely felt very emotional.
It's interesting. As we just started college tours with my oldest, I kind of, I don't know, I was trying to forward, project or look or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough when the first one goes, but then when the second one goes, and then you're really like stuck. Well, what are you gonna do? What do you do with yourself? You work more, or I don't know. That it's gonna be an interesting transition. But so let's take a step back, right? So you're an Army guy through and through, right? When you decided to hang up the boots, you stepped out and said, "Hey, I'm going to start a cybersecurity company." Is it as easy as that, or
No, it actually didn't happen in that succession. So I got out, thought I was going to go do law enforcement. It's like, sure, why not? That's what I want to do. These 3 retired Army colonels had a government contracting company here in the Washington, D.C. area, somehow found me, security clearance, bring me in for an interview. What do you know about computers? Like, about that much, very much like, hey, I can turn it on and surf the web, but if you give me a chance, I can probably learn anything that you want me to learn. They made me an offer that was far more money than I was going to make in law enforcement, and I took it immediately.
Wow.
Did that for a few years, found out that I got bored really fast. As a government contractor, it's not great. I mean, you're sitting in a cubicle, you're doing the same thing over and over again. You want growth, you want to do more. And some of the organizations that you work with, they just want you to do the same thing because they need a body in that seat because that's how they get paid. Didn't work for me. So I decided, screw this, I'm leaving. I'm going out into the commercial market space. I found my first civilian job outside of the government world as the operations supervisor at PSINet at one of their data centers.
Wow.
And it worked for me because I had all this leadership experience. It worked well for me. And that was another one where I didn't really qualify for the job because they wanted somebody who had Unix experience. And I'm a bit cocky, if you know this about me. And so one of the things was like, yeah, I could spell Unix. I was like, but if you give me 24 hours, I'll show you a learning curve like you've never seen before. So give me 24 hours and I'll go educate myself and come back. And they took the challenge. Wow. And I came back and they gave me the job. So, but that's part of like the military. Like the military teaches you don't have to have all of the answers, but you do need to know how you can go get the answers or where you can get them from, or, that idea. Go use your available resources, the people, the manuals, whatever it may be. Then I found myself on unemployment because the .com failure happened. And that's where the journey of Solutions Granted started, because I was on unemployment, needed to feed my kids, and also the devil's playground runs pretty tight in my hands. So I needed to find something to do so that I didn't find myself in trouble.
Wow. So there's the ultimate motivation, I guess, at that point. But I hadn't heard PSINet in years. I know they were headquartered in Annapolis, right? Originally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I know they kind of surround the Beltway, probably right around the same times of like groups like Digex, and yeah, that's man, you took me back. Holy cow.
That just means we're old.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so you kind of have your back up against the wall, and then you get this thing started. And what was kind of the first days, the early customer acquisition? Was it the epitome of the hustle and just get out there and try to shake the trees, or did it take a while to start to build a kind of a stable recurring model? Or
well, definitely. So the very first client was a friend of mine who actually became my CFO. She was working at a collection agency and said, hey, we need some help with this network and computers, and can you help us? That was the first client. The second client was one of the venture capital companies that their full-time IT guy was leaving and said, can you just do this part-time for us? The third client became one of the guys that worked at the venture capital company, said, can you go talk to a friend of mine who owns this high-end textile cleaning company? Like they were doing like the textile cleaning at the White House and a bunch of the McMansions in McLean, if you're familiar with that area in Virginia.
Yeah.
And so I went in there and I talked to them, and it was a day later, they're calling me and said, hey, well, we don't want to do it with anybody else. We want to do it with you. And I had 3 clients, no idea what I was doing. Probably called my mom that night and said, hey, I think I'm running a business. I'm not sure what I'm doing with this, but I'm just going to keep walking through the door and see where it goes. And it was a lot of word of mouth. Like my business really grew from the fact that I was doing the right thing for people. And I was really moving into that MSP space before MSPs were popular.
Mm-hmm.
I hated the VAR business. Like just selling something for the sake of selling it wasn't attractive to me. I wanted to be able to do something that felt like I was putting some value in there. And that was around that time where VARs were trying to figure out what this transition to MSP meant. So just kept getting referrals, people kept talking about me, kept responding to me, started bringing on some employees. And then I figured out one day that I was a terrible MSP. Like I was a horrible MSP. And the majority of it was about me because I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't have passion for it. I didn't really enjoy it. More so, it was a lot of the, why are you calling me at 10 o'clock on a Friday night because you can't print because that little blinky light's telling you you're out of toner and somehow that's my emergency. Not the thing you really want to tell somebody, but absolutely I'm on the verge of telling everybody that. Like, you're obviously too stupid for this thing. Let's go ahead and box it up and send it home, put you back on paper and pen. Needed to find something that I could feel passion and purpose for. And it was around that time, probably around 2000, maybe 2008, 2009, saw this full page article about SonicWall. I was getting my oil changed. It was in this magazine, talked about SonicWall and this wireless built-in box. They were doing triple DES encryption on top of their 802.11. And back then, like people were just starting to get to the point where they were doing WPA. So like, wait, military background, I know a little bit about encryption. It's like, okay, well, wait, how's that possible? Is this even real? Or is this just another marketing fluff and stuff? So I decided to buy my first SonicWall and probably spent 5 or 6 hours setting it up because I refused to read the manual. I was like, no, I'm going to beat this one to death, or it's going to beat me to death, and we're going to figure it out together. And then when I finally got it working, I blew it away and started over again to see if I could really get there, and probably spent a good weekend just doing that over and over again. And then what I did is, instead of selling it as trying to make a product sell, I turned it into a employee optimization cell. And so they had content filtering in the boxes. And so I went to my clients at a time. I was like, hey, I can give you this firewall. I'm going to give it to you at my cost. I don't need to make any money on this. But what I want you to understand about is we're going to drive employee productivity with this. We're going to stop them from doing all of the things that you don't want them to do. And instead of catching them and having a tough conversation, let's just stop them. Right. And it resonated. And then you started to see that, you could really take technology and make it more than a technology conversation and turn it into some employee productivity conversation. And that really, really resonated. And then I didn't have to answer the stupid conversations of, I can't print, I forgot my password, and that felt really good. And where that went is in 2010, we became the North American Partner of the Year because we said, no more MSP business. We're not doing this anymore. We're going to become a firewall management and monitoring company. Wow. And that started my SonicWall journey 18 years ago to now being acquired by SonicWall.
Wow. How about that? That's pretty wild. So, along the way, right, it's not just SonicWall, but you built great relationships with some technology vendors and kind of brought them in underneath this kind of managed security service, offering, right? What was kind of, how hands-on were you in kind of the selecting of the technology? I imagine, knowing your personality, you're probably, pretty deep.
A little bit. You know what the catalyst was? So again, I think the military does a good job of teaching you not to be afraid. And if you are afraid, well, harness the fear and go get it done anyhow, because you don't really have a choice. Some of that comes to a lot of the military. It's true life and death. We're not just talking about saving livelihoods. We're talking about saving lives.
Yeah.
And so what really messed with me, but messed with me in a way that I couldn't foresee, was so 2010, we became the North American Partner of the Year for SonicWall. 2011, Dell acquired SonicWall. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, okay, what does this mean for me? Like, I was an all in. All my eggs were in one basket, one vendor doing nothing other. We were doing wireless. We were doing, backups. We were doing email security. We were doing firewalls, everything that SonicWall had, doing their endpoint protection. And about a year into that Dell ownership, like, my world got turned upside down. Like, I was getting revenue, wasn't getting the leads, because obviously Dell has 100,000 salespeople. Like, so why do people need me? And they were just going direct. And we all know Dell kind of likes to go direct, as much as they say they like their channel. So it forced me to get out of my own way and not allow it to be a blockbuster moment. It was a change or be changed moment, and I was going to do the changing because I didn't want something to enforce their change on me. So the first thing we did is we picked up Mimecast as an email security product.
Right.
And then it was about 9 years ago, we picked up Cylance, because I hated the endpoint space. Like, everybody in the endpoint space, as far as I was concerned, sucked. They were terrible. They were not good at it. It was all just a horrible mess. Configure it the best way you can. It's still going to lose. Started with Cylance, and that really started to revolutionize who we were as a company. And it changed our perception of us, and it changed MSP's perception of us, because now we were taking this enterprise tool and we were packaging it down for MSPs in the SMB space and giving them something that wasn't really being done by anybody else. Yeah, super hands-on when it's come to picking the technology. Not as much today, because now what I've realized is that there was a period of time in there where I was the inhibiting factor to the growth of the company, because I was trying to do everything and be everything for everyone. And I had all these really brilliant people that were working with me, and I wasn't letting them do their job. Yeah. I wasn't being a CEO is what I wasn't being. I was still a technician. I was still wrapped up into the speeds and the feeds and clicking and configuring and doing all of those things. And I was stopping us from being the best version of us that we could be. It was my fault.
Wow, there's so many nuggets in there. It's funny. I think we have very, aside from being in and around the Beltway for most of our careers, I think there's a lot of parallels between, when running Windvale, and we were kind of in this VAR space, going up against like the DLTs and the MXs and the Carasofts, but we had a couple of really interesting inflection points where we had some technologies that we'd brought into agencies. We were running, massive enterprise-wide contracts, and then we had, there was a technology out of Florida called Numara that IT tracking software called Trackit, and it was kind of like an entry-level type of solution. But we had, I think, between our federal and state and local government customers, we had probably 400 or 500 customers. But it's like a drop of a hat. Numara gets bought by BMC. The stuff that we were doing with Gideon, they get bought by Symantec, right? And then, over a period of, maybe a year, some of our big technologies that we were working with and we were creating velocity with, and you obviously know government sales cycles are not, they're not short. You put all this time and effort and energy, and then, you have the wool pull out from underneath you when these guys get acquired, and then you're stuck with, you're back to zero, or who are these guys? That's a tough thing, but the ability to pivot, I think, that's an art and a science, and it sounds like you did it pretty darn well. So you're moving, pretty fast. You get into, call it 2019, 2020. You have this explosion of endpoints, because of the pandemic. You've got security becoming really, a household topic in every MSP. What kind of impact did the pandemic and kind of the convergence of the pandemic and remote and security, what kind of impact did that have on the business at that time, or did it have any impact?
It definitely did. We grew significantly through the pandemic. I think the good part is we had positioned ourselves prior to the pandemic. That was probably 2017. We decided that, or maybe 18, I don't know. We decided, hey, like, if we're really going to commit to this channel, well, then we've got to build a channel name. And how are we going to build a channel name? Because we kept getting referrals. We kept getting MSPs saying, hey, talk to my buddy here, talk to my buddy over there. But it wasn't happening fast. And I wanted it to happen faster. So we decided that we were going to take a half a year and do the ASCII circuit. So we came in at a half a year, and Jay Ryerson was there with what he was doing with Carver. And so we came in as the new kids on the block and came in super disruptive, like with price points, just trying to beat Jay. And Jay gave me some great advice, and he did it in a very friendly manner. It wasn't a, hey, you're screwing it up and you're doing this wrong. He's like, but don't make this a race to the bottom. He's like, that's not good for anybody. And he was right. I was trying to make it a race to the bottom because I thought, well, I'm going to win on price point because he's got the name. So how can I be disruptive? And I took that to heart. And while I was still trying to, beat him in every way possible, I learned a lot from him in that business, because I think he was, at least as far as I could tell, and when I'm going back, like that first master managed security services provider that had built a really great name in the channel for MSPs and doing it the right way. And there was a lot that I emulated about him and his business and how he was doing things. And then he got acquired by Continuum, which then it was greenfield for me at that point in time. Because, it's like anytime a big company acquires anybody, there's lots of love, but then there's some hate. It's always going to happen. So there was a windfall that happened to us. That there was partners like, nope, I'm not working with Continuum. I hate Continuum. Like just like the same people, like we lost partners when we were acquired by SonicWall. There's people out there that 10 years ago during the Dell ownership had a bad experience, and they hang on to it, and they're still angry, and they're still bitter, and they're still upset, and they're still frustrated because it was such a bad experience for them. So the same thing happened to us, but because we had gotten into that ASCII circuit just at the right time, before the pandemic hit, we started to build a name. And so then that word of mouth really started to move. And Kevin, you know this, you've done it before with, ID agent. So, it's that idea that I almost think that sometimes MSPs need to see you 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different cities in 3 or 4 different ways before they really believed you to be legitimate. Like I can't tell you the number of MSPs that would see us at 3 or 4 ASCII shows, or they'd see us at a smaller show, and then all of a sudden they show up at IT Nation and we're there. Or they'd show up somewhere else like, oh, well, now I guess you're for real, so we should do some business with you. Like I'm for real because I've dropped $120,000 to be at this place. Again, I continue to call this my story of dumb luck. I don't know how to say, why it happened or how it happened. I just kept trying to move it forward in a way that felt good to me and to my company and to my employees.
Yeah, look, I used to say the same thing, dumb luck, and then I had, people beat me over the head saying, oh no, you make your luck, you make your luck. And I think similarly, I think with ID Agent and with where you guys were, we benefited from the right market at the right time, right? And you also had prior to Jay with Carver, and then you had the Continuum, a couple others that were trying to really define the marketplace. And it often happens, right? You have the first handful that go out there, and they spend the millions of dollars creating the marketplace. Then typically a couple of folks come in and they eat their lunch. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with Danny over ThreatLocker, where they're actually a pretty interesting example of somebody that, especially in this space, they defined kind of this, zero trust, but you would assume that they would kind of have flamed out, but they've done a pretty good job of growing and creating a category. But I think you guys benefited just as much as ID Agent benefited. I think we benefited more from the fact that Experian spent like $37 million one year, and they advertised dark web on the Super Bowl. And I think, people are like, oh, I've heard that term. And so that's our dumb luck. But yeah, anyway, so you guys, moving fast. And then you said it was like an 18-year journey to get to the point where, it just made sense for, this kind of marriage with SonicWall. I guess, did you have others in mind, others kind of courting you and, potential opportunities? And then, what really was it about SonicWall that just put it over the top? Never mind the existing 18-year relationship, but, what was it?
So yeah, we did have others, that were happening, and it had been probably for the past 15 months where,
Mm.
every month, every other month, somebody was reaching out, somebody wanted to talk, private equity, venture capital, interested in, and I wasn't ready. Like I got really good at giving people the Heisman,
Yeah.
no thanks, I appreciate it. I'm enjoying the journey, no desire, no want, and then it's probably about 6 months before it got real with SonicWall, I started entertaining the conversations because like, well, there's something for me to learn here.
Sure.
Either I'm going to learn something that I don't want, or I'm going to learn something that I do want. I'm going to be able to carry that forward. So when the time comes, I'm going to know the better question to ask
Yeah.
and how to express what I really want out of something. And, it was probably 8 years ago. Somebody had asked me the question, well, what is your exit strategy? What are you going to do? And I flippantly had said something about, well, if SonicWall wants to acquire me one day, I'd do that. And I think you have to be really careful what you put out into the universe. I'm not a big believer in that sometimes, but man, did it come true this time. And what for me was I can't discount the 18 years of that relationship because there is such a familiarity that we had in working with them. We had been behind the scenes for so long, being a member of their partner advisory council, having some of my guys on their technical advisory board, having great influence and relationships, and being a part of something that was much bigger than us, and also growing our business with them. Uh, and they made the right offer. There was certain things that were kind of non-negotiable for me. One, I wanted to continue to work. I wasn't ready to retire. I didn't want to ride off into the sunset. I didn't want to take whatever my money was and, go have fun for the rest of my life. I wasn't done with my journey. I wanted to continue to support MSPs. I wanted to grow it bigger, stronger, faster. Feels like it's a $6 million man commercial for anybody that remembers that TV show. But that was really one of my non-negotiables is I wanted to be in charge of something, and I wanted to work with people that I could respect. And I had a long history with Bob Van Kirk, before he was CEO and during that years of journey that he was working at SonicWall. And I really respect him. Like there's some people that you look at in life that cross your path that you appreciate them for their business acumen. There's other people that you look and you respect them for who they are in their community. And then there's those rare people that you find that they're just good people.
Yeah.
Like you just want to be around them because the things that they say are true. And Bob is just a good person. And so that idea is like, well, if I could sell my company and I could directly report to him, because look, after you're the guy or gal for 22 years and you're not answering to anybody, that's a tough transition. Like there was a couple of things. It's like, one, am I going to be a good employee? And two, is HR going to have me on speed dial? Because I really hope. I mean, those are the two things. Like, can I get past that for the first 6 months? Well, I haven't been called into HR's office yet. It's been 6 months. And I think I'm being a good employee, but I'm being a really good employee because I've got a fantastic boss.
Yeah.
He gives me all the rope in the world that he lets me go do what I need to do, how I want to do it, the way I want to do it. And he hasn't put any cuffs on me and said, we're not doing that. And so as long as I'm doing the right things and being successful and hitting the numbers that we need to hit, and, if I had the opportunity to do it all over again and 6 months was day one today, I'd still sell to SonicWall today.
Wow.
And if I was at the end of my 24 mandatory commit that I'm on board for this, I'd stay.
Wow.
I mean, I probably wouldn't want to travel quite as much because I'm telling you, traveling every week right now has been a bit of a pain. But beyond that one thing, which will slow down eventually.
Sure.
But yeah, I have no regrets, like zero regrets. And that's a hard thing to say.
It is, yeah, because if you think about the percentage of these acquisitions that go south for whatever reason, most often it's personality conflicts, and then the CEO gets in there and they're like, oh, maybe I don't want to work for the rest of the next 2 years, or whatever the conflict is. The fact that you kind of made it through it, and you're bringing up his name. Remember, I was having a conversation with Michelle right before I interviewed him, and she said, "Let me warn you, he's very genuine." Right. And so it's funny, you kind of described him the same way, because on the interview, I got to thinking, him and I, we kind of talked similarly about some of the old school technologies, and, it was really easy to connect with him. So I can see he'd be a pretty good leader to work under. If that's your first boss in 20 something years, that's not a bad one, I guess.
No, I feel very, very pleased and honored that that's my first one, because man, I've heard some horror stories.
Oh, yeah, they're out there.
Michael Crean sometimes thinks way less before he speaks, so I've not found myself in trouble yet.
Well, it's good. 6 months in, you're doing just fine. All right, so let's kind of look forward. Let's obviously there was a couple different motivations for being acquired by SonicWall, but I imagine part of that is what is the 1-in-1 look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, right? Especially because you have to remain interested and passionate and want to show up and have an impact, right? You're not ready to kind of step aside. So strategically, what was the outcome that you're looking for, and then what does this combination look like? Where's this go from a platform standpoint moving forward?
So, I mean, for me, knowing that I had never taken any funding from anybody and I was completely self-funded and growing it, we got to over 1,000 MSPs, 250,000 devices out there. We had a really good, fast, hard run. But how do you get to the next level without some sort of infusion of cash or strategic alliance? And so it just made sense. You go from being solutions granted with 1,000-ish MSPs that we're supporting to SonicWall having 17,000 partners in their channel.
Wow.
So there's a force multiplier there immediately. Going from an organization that I was heavily engineered, heavily tech focused, having 3 salespeople. That's what we had when we were acquired. 3 full-time salespeople. So now there's 300 plus salespeople in SonicWall. Wow. So there's another force multiplier.
Yeah.
And now having global reach. So we had taken our time to be the best of the best that we could be in North America and really staying focused there. Well, what's happening now is that, we've done in the first 90 days, we've launched 3 new MDR offerings. So now it's no longer just Cylance. Now it's the Sentinel-1. We have an MDR offering for Sentinel-1. We have an MDR offering for Windows Defender. And we have an MDR offering for Capture Client, which is SonicWall technology.
Wow.
We've kept our soul, if you will. And that was, we're still a cost per seat per month with no annual commits and no minimums. And that was important to me in part of this journey, because that's what I thought that the channel really wanted, because that's what I would always want. And SonicWall leadership agreed. And so we continue to do that. We're getting ready to launch another MDR offering in July. But more important than that is we're going to maintain our security operations center 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, still here in North America. But we're going to open up a second one in July in EMEA.
Wow.
Which is great because we do have global partners. We've got a ton of partners in Europe. Went over there meeting with them in Ireland and London and Germany, and a lot of desire to do more with SonicWall. And so now getting the investment to go build out another SOC team to run that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week over there for data residency and data governance, that's a big deal. So, you go from November to what will be July. So, call it 8 months, 9 months. And we've launched more MDR offerings with another one to come. We're keeping our open ecosystem. So while we are SonicWall and we build some fantastic and amazing firewalls, we'll still do SOC services around Checkpoint and Fortinet and Palo Alto and WatchGuard and Meraki and pfSense and, the major players in the space, which is kind of unheard of when you think about most firewall manufacturers, like do my stuff or don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
So, we're breaking that mold to keep that open ecosystem. And then we're going to take the show on the road and go global. Like, to me, that's kind of cool. Like, just getting to build something that's now, we were big, we're about to be gigantic.
Yeah. Wow. Your TAM, just from the diversification of the MDR to, now this, being able to, residence in EMEA is, that's, I'm trying to even calculate how would you calculate the expansion of your TAM there? It's just, that's massive. Right. And there's a lot to be said for the fact that, a company like SonicWall, is leaning in with you on this kind of month-to-month approach, because, maybe their contemporaries or peers or what have you, I think many of them would push for, something a lot different, call it 3-year deals,
Sure.
Like that.
There's a few people out there that do that quite frequently anymore.
But that is a testament to, I guess, their commitment in acquiring you guys and giving you guys that, that backing. So you're getting not only, you're kind of keeping almost like the status quo. You're getting additional resource, but then you're broadening, your reach, from a technology standpoint and obviously geographically. So that's I think that's the definition of success, at least for the first 6 months. That's pretty damn good.
And we're not done. Like once we going overseas, there's the amount of conversations that we've had with attorneys about things that you can and can't do over there that you would just normally do here. Like, what, really, you can't do that there? So it's been a huge learning curve for the team and for myself, and just understanding the actions that take place when you start to play in a global market. But we're not going to finish there. Like, we're hoping that, and by all accounts, there's going to be things that we do wrong, because no matter how many times you've done it, like, you can go up to the plate and hit that ball 1,000 times, and then you could go on a cold streak, and it could just happen. But you'll get back to it. So we're going to figure out kind of where we bump our heads along the way, and then we'll immediately figure out how we're going to address the market in APJ. That'll be our next one, and we hope to get that done before the end of the year. So it's an aggressive plan, but we're getting the backing and the support that we need. It's fun.
So I guess my question is, when am I ever going to get to go to a Caps game with you then? I mean, if you're always on the road and, I don't
know, but I mean, I kept my season tickets because I am so adamant about seeing Ovechkin break that goal. I hope he can, I hope he starts the season hot next year, or later this year. But I've got the tickets. I've got to see it. And, and it's also the 50th anniversary of the Caps. The 24-25 season is their 50th anniversary. So I can't miss that.
Holy cow, 74-20. Man, yeah, you're right. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Long time.
On that note, sir, I really appreciate you taking time, and if people want to find out more about what you're up to and Solutions Granted, now part of SonicWall, what's the best way to get a hold of you or the organization?
Well, I mean, you can still go to www.solutionsgranted.com. That website still exists. It's still operational and functional. You can also go to www.sonicwall.com. A lot of our services have been transitioned in there. If you happen to be a SonicWall partner today, reach out to your channel account manager or whoever you work with over there and just tell them that you're interested. Or you could always email me. Like, I'll do my best to get back to you. I'm like a little bit slower than I used to be, because I feel like I'm getting a few more emails than I'm quite accustomed to. But give us a call, send us an email, follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or whatever craziness Lisa Compton has out there going on the social media side, because she's always got something happening. But it always just starts with one conversation. And it's just about where you're at in your journey, what you're looking to accomplish. And you don't have to do everything the way that we're doing it, but maybe there's just one piece that you're not doing that we can augment. And if that's the only thing you ever do with us, cool. Doesn't have to be everything. One thing is all that matters.
That's awesome. And I think one thing that makes for really, really good organizations in this space, the channel, there's obviously it's the technology and the people, but I think it's the willingness of the CEO to get out and interact with the community. And you've done a hell of a job of that. And I think there are a handful of companies, and we can all name them, maybe about 10 or 12 out there that CEOs they leaned into getting out and meeting the customers, picking up the phone, not dodging, not hiding behind that problem. You certainly did that, and so I'm extremely happy for the outcome, and sounds like it's a fantastic partnership between you and SonicWall. And so, well done, sir. Well done.
I couldn't be happier. I feel very blessed.
Awesome. Well, on that note, well, thank you very much, and we'll have some links in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Right on. Thanks, Kevin.
You got it. Thanks.
Take care.